Another of you meatheads asked me if this is, and I talk about it in the early tapes of the seminar, whether this is just bullshit or QLA dogma. But from 1971 to 1998, I didn't take a day off, including the day I got married. I worked some. And about middle of 98, end of 98, I was approached by an intermediary that said there was a lawyer in town, a very successful lawyer, that had worked 1 year less than I, or had not taken a day off 1 year less than I had. So we met and he was the lawyer for a lot of the big guys. We met for breakfast at his place in London, central London, Mayfair. And we traded stories about how we worked on funny days, all our birthdays, all our Christmas. In his particular case, I believe he was Jewish. So all during Rosh Hashanah and et cetera, et cetera. Needless to say, you can't find anybody that hasn't taken a day off in 26, 27 years anymore. And as I predicted, and I still predict, I stand on my prediction, corporate America will rue the fucking day. They said some of their employees don't have to come in at all. Some of their employees can work from at the office 51% of the time. All their employees can pick their own schedules now, et cetera, et cetera. They will rule the fucking day, and they will see. It's not going to show up this year or next year, but it'll show up in company productivity, in my opinion. Before Corona, I spoke at almost 20 universities, Nepal, Eastern Europe, Western Europe, Oxford University, the Naval Academy, throughout the United States, on a topic called Wealth, Risk, Reward, Not. And when I did my interview for Business Insider, the nice young gal who interviewed me and wrote the very nice article, I explained to her what it meant. And what it meant was, and it was very much in line why she said that she felt her generation felt left out, and they were going and they were buying Bitcoin and they were buying a lot of the stocks from platforms because there was no commission, et cetera, et cetera. Wealth, risk, reward, not means back in your grandfather's day or maybe even your dad's day, they worked 40 years, they got a pension, they might have got a gold watch, not as nice as this gold watch that Sally gave me, and they were set for the rest of their life. Their mortgage was probably almost paid off, and they were set. They probably had a little vacation home, etc. Well, those days have been gone for a long, long time. The system is broken, yet the universities still teach the same old system. When I went to the universities to speak, I asked a question: how many classes have you had on selling a business? How many nobody raised their hand. How many classes have you had in buying a business? Nobody raised their hand. How many classes have you had in leadership? Except for the Naval Academy, no schools had any classes in leadership. So three of the very most important things about being out in the real world, they weren't being taught. I have yet to meet very few people that used any geometry, calculus, or chemistry in their job endeavors, unless they were in a math endeavor or a chemical endeavor or something. So the wealth, risk, reward isn't there anymore, and that's why we say not. And the kids know it, and that's why the kids complain about going to school. For example, at Wharton, University of Pennsylvania, it costs $62,000 a year to go to school. So that's $240,000 for a 4-year degree. And most of the kids have $150,000 to $200,000, if not more, in debt. And it's not easy to pay that kind of debt off, especially in the beginning when you're beginning the salary ladder out in the corporate world. And it's almost impossible to get on the property ladder making that kind of money because you don't have enough money saved up for a down payment unless you've got gracious grandparents, parents, or in-laws. So the system doesn't work anymore. And of course, that's why the kids are rebelling. I'm curious to see what's going to happen. Some of the schools, you can come to class. Some of the schools, you don't have to come to class, et cetera, et cetera. How is this going to pan out over the next 2 or 3 years? But it's not going to end well. The school tuition are getting higher and higher and higher. even, the school that I went to, which you've got to explain about. And the reason why I say you've got to explain about it is because when I went to California State University Northridge, it was called San Fernando Valley State College. And only a couple years after I graduated was it name changed to a university. And they gave me a new diploma a year or so after I graduated in 1971. And I've been out of university 50 years now. But the things that I learned in university, I won't say I didn't use one thing, but I hardly used any of what I learned. I learned more in real life. I learned more in the military, and I learned more in my various jobs. So that's what wealth risk reward not means. And I'm going to start giving the talks again in the not too distant future, but I will only talk not virtually, but in person. When we talk about goals and affirmations in the seminar, which is normally the penultimate or next to the last day, and then the last day they give me their goals and affirmations. The goals that they put down on the paperwork before they got there are abysmal. They're pretty low, and they're based on role models, which you don't have. Your parents and grandparents didn't raise you to be a high performance person because they're not a high performance person. And when we've had parents and kids and grandparents here together all the same day at the same seminar, they almost always say their reasoning is, you don't know what you don't know, vis-a-vis why they didn't teach you better, which is, arguably okay. And then the next reason is we didn't have any role models. Nobody was high performance. Remember, you're the average of the 5 people that you hang around most. And who are those people, and are they high performance? The answer is they're just guys like you and gals like you. And you normally hang around with people that are more like you than more like a superstar that went off to an Ivy League school or went off to Oxford or Cambridge. So they asked the question, what's the best goal story from beginning to fruition that I know of? And it happens to be mine. In 1983, I was running down Torrance Boulevard. I used to go run 20 miles every Saturday. And I just subscribed to a magazine that was just a year or two old then called The Robb Report, ROBB Report. And I highly recommend that whoever listens to this subscribe to it. And in the back of now there's 5 or 6 different editions of Robb Report. In those days, there was just one. In the back of the Robb Report, on the inside cover, they had things for sale. I mean, motorcycles, funky cars, etc. And one of the things that was for sale was a castle on an island on the west shore of Scotland. And it was kind of like from the Highlander or James Bond movie. And I decided then and there, and I wanted to leave Southern California so I could get away from my family and my contemporaries. Although I was already pretty successful. I already had a couple $1 million, but I knew that I was not being all that I could be. That was, let's say, April 1, 83. I moved in this castle September 1, 84. So in 16 or so months, my goal of having a castle on an island, arguably we're on an island. It's not the castle I thought. I thought we'd have a moat, et cetera, et cetera. But everything that I did on a conscious level and a subconscious level was towards that end of raising my family in a castle. I got involved in a transaction unrelated to my business while I was in the UK in late 83. I saw the opportunity to take hydrocarbons, oil and gas companies public. Oil and gas was hot in the early 80s because the North Sea had just been founded, and the tax revenue on the North Sea saved the UK from bankruptcy and saved Maggie Thatcher's first administration. I found out what to take public. I went back to the United States. I hired all the best. I hired one better of everything that they had, including their lawyers, which were Freshfields. I hired, and Freshfields were represented since 17-something, the Queen of England, the Bank of England, the Church of England, and Dan Peña. And when we used to introduce our team, we'd say, this is Freshfields, represent the Queen of England, the Bank of England, the Church of England, and Dan Peña. We set up a date for on my 39th birthday, we were going to take the company public. And I was going to become more or less instantly rich. Best birthday gift I ever got was 100 million pounds on my birthday, 1984. I haven't been able to surpass that. It's a pretty nifty birthday gift. But coincidentally, that same date, August 10th, 1984, was the privatization of Jaguar. Mrs. Thatcher was privatizing a lot of the UK government's assets to save the company from bankruptcy. And I picked my date, and she wanted the same date. And so everybody said, you can't go public on the same day Mrs. Thatcher is taking Jaguar public. To this day, it's a sexual experience for me when I see a Jaguar. I mean, occasionally I get in a Jaguar limousine, and I think that it's like having sex, because the few weeks before the flotation, as they call it here, I went around and I had great brokers, Greenwald. I had great representatives across the board. I sold like a madman, a psychopath, the shares of the big institutions, ultimately convincing the Kuwaiti Investment Authority, the Kuwaiti government, to take a large holding in the company. And the day after the public offerings of Jaguar and Great Western Resources, the headlines read, the one that really roared, Great Western up 20%, Jaguar down 20%. And I dreamed and I had affirmations of nothing more than moving into this thing. I didn't know it was going to be that quickly, but I have a number of other things that have happened pretty quickly. Just recently, the seminar that ended in June, we had a kid from Northern Ireland who I call the pig fucker, pig farmer. He didn't raise pigs, although it's a better story with pigs. He raised cows and sheep. In 26 days from the seminar, he had put his board together, accountants, lawyers, etc., and done a deal in 26 days. That's pretty fucking good. Although his class, was a pain in the ass, it almost drove me to hoping that I was going to quit because they were so fucking stupid. And then this guy came like Moses from the desert. He came like Superman from the sky to do the deal. And even though I made fun of him, he was a tough kid. He had thick skin, not as thick as mine. And he was probably least likely to succeed in the eyes of the other people. I wasn't the only one making fun of him in the class. And that's how the classes turn out. So that's a long-winded story about the castle. And we've been here now this coming this coming September 1. We will be here 37 years, I guess. Yeah, 37 years. It's the basis of the QLA. Yesterday's dreams, today's realities.